Okay, welcome everybody to day two of the 1000 days of live coaching. Today we'll be dealing with a very important enemy called procrastination. So we're going to dissect what it takes to live a procrastination-free life. Why am I doing this? I woke up a few days ago with a thought. Suppose I had 1000 days left to live. What's the most valuable lessons in life and business that I can teach the world? That's how we came about the 1000 days of live business coaching. And so, who am I and why should you care? So my name is Obo. I've had very remarkable career in the energy industry with Shell and Chevron. I've had the privilege to teach in top business schools in the world and to work with amazing business leaders, including multinationals. And I've had the opportunity to coach hundreds of senior executives and managers. And this is the space that I play in. And again, in the course of the 1000 days, we will also take some time to talk about family, marriage, relationships, because I'm really very passionate about that. Because of what use is it being successful in business, but then you lose your family? But today, the subject that we're tackling is procrastination. So let's talk about the procrastination problem. You cannot quantify the damage that procrastination has done to different parts of your life. You see, I meet men and women every day, and it's actually a global problem. Procrastination is not, it's a humanity problem. It's not limited to specific gender. It's not limited to specific continents or ethnicities and races. It's universal human problem. And we're going to dissect and moderate today. All right. Now, procrastination has cost you so much in your health and also in your bank balance. Again, you might never be able to tell the opportunities that you have lost just because you waited for tomorrow. You waited for a more convenient time to do it. And type in the chat, in the comment section, if you actually lost opportunity because of procrastination. Again, for those of us who have businesses, you cannot quantify the lost sales, what we've lost in sales, because we procrastinated an appointment. We procrastinated booking that flight to go meet the customer. We procrastinated attending that meeting, and then we failed to make the sales. Procrastination is deadly. You cannot also quantify how much money in millions of dollars that procrastination has cost you. And then even in some cases, procrastination has cost people their lives. They were having some medical symptom, like I'm going to share one with you, my own experience, and they procrastinated going to seek health care until it was too late. Procrastination. Okay, I will lose weight next year. I will start eating well next month, and the next month has turned to 7 days, 7 years, 17 years. And the most disturbing part of it is that you cannot quantify how many years procrastination has wiped off your life. Not to talk about, how much different the quality of my present life could have been, of your life could have been without procrastination. In other words, we cannot quantify the damage that procrastination burdened life has done to us. And then, in the same way, we might not be able to quantify the incredible opportunity that a procrastination-free life can give us. Imagine living procrastination-free. In fact, even if it's just to try it for 1 week, that's a good challenge to say, this week I'm not going to procrastinate. Your life is going to change in amazing ways. Because procrastination is a big problem for CEOs, for parents, for students, for name them. Procrastination kills. And that's why we're going to solve that problem tonight. I'm going to give you tools that will liquidate it. I'll share my own experience and how these tools helped me to liquidate it, because procrastination also bleeds your productivity. Okay. None of us rises beyond our procrastination, and that's the point I've been making. Your procrastination is like a bronze ceiling. You can never go beyond or grow beyond your procrastination level. So, there are 5 key takeaways you are going to get today. You're going to walk away from this session tonight with a better understanding of the root causes of your procrastination. How cool would that be? Because if you understand the root, then it becomes very, very easy to deal with it from the root. To deal with the cause and not just the effects of procrastination. You will also walk away tonight with confidence in your ability to overcome procrastination and to achieve your biggest goals. Because many times, the only thing standing between us and our biggest goals, whether it's our business goals, or it's our education goals, or it's our family goals, whatever it is, many times the only thing standing between us and those goals is procrastination. I'm also going to give you tools to deal with the mental blocks, because procrastination, believe me, is actually a mental problem. It's not a physical thing. All that 100% of procrastination, the root of procrastination is in this place. It's in our head, it's in our brains. And so we need to have tools, to apply tools, and I'm going to share the ones that powerfully helped me to remove the mental blocks that create procrastination in our lives. Remember, we are talking about creating a procrastination-free lifestyle. How cool would it be to just be a person without procrastination? And then you will also learn methods to focus and to increase your concentration, because distraction is one of the biggest enemies of this generation. Distraction of phones, distraction of social media, distraction of news, distraction of all kinds of things. These are challenges of the modern age that we live in. And I'm going to tell you how to increase your concentration, because your level of focus and concentration is directly proportional to your productivity. And then again, we'll round off with techniques for building consistent, productive habits. How cool is this? Are you feeling excited? Do you feel like something transformational is about to hit you this evening, and that you're going to wake up the next day very, very different? Just type in the comment section, I feel it. Type in the comment section, I feel it, I feel it, I feel it. Okay, so let's go with the first part of the agenda. So the first agenda is understanding the root causes of procrastination. Now, I did a very interesting exercise. I have a funny story to tell about procrastination. Some of you may have seen a post I made a couple of days ago when I said that the most difficult book to write is the book on procrastination. How many of you saw that post? Type in the chat if you saw it. The most difficult book to write. And do you know the origin of that? I started writing a book on procrastination 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago. And I never finished it. Meanwhile, the first book I wrote after I quit Shell, I actually wrote that book under 1 week. I had the materials and I sat down and finished it in 1 week. But of course, after writing it, there were edits, and then I had to send it to Professor Patutomi, who did the forwarding of the book, and then it took quite some time waiting. But it essentially took 1 week to write. I've written other books after that. None of them took me 2.5 years to write. But the book on procrastination, I haven't gone halfway. That's very strange. Anyway, so when I was researching the material for that book, I did an exercise. I wanted to understand why executives, business owners, entrepreneurs, parents, students, why they procrastinate. So I went online and did a very simple exercise that you can actually do. So I went to Google and I typed in quotes, I procrastinate when, and I got hundreds and hundreds of answers. And I'm showing you this because we are beginning to understand. I just feel that the most practical way that you can understand the root causes of your procrastination is to do this thing I'm talking about right now. I'm going to tell you how. So these were some of the things that came up online and people were sharing why they procrastinate. So an author and coach like myself said, I procrastinate when I really don't want to do something. I procrastinate when I really don't want to do something. Okay, coach.me said, I procrastinate when I am overwhelmed with tasks. And then, of course, if I mention any of them and it applies to you, just make a note of it. In fact, put in the chat, that's me. Just put in the comment section, that's me. Okay, I procrastinate when I am overwhelmed with tasks. In fact, that also happens to me. And then, like we're going to see later, the majority of us, we procrastinate when we're overwhelmed with tasks. Then, freelancecorner.co.uk said, I procrastinate when something is too hard, when I'm not ready for it. Usually, I hit a wall when I haven't given myself time to think, or I've unhelpfully written right article on my to-do list without dedicating any time to plan or research. Are you beginning to feel something? Is something beginning to loosen up from you? Just seeing that sometimes other people are facing just exactly the same thing that you are. This other person says, I procrastinate when I'm tired of a project I'm currently working on and I need a break on it or from it. So let me share 3 more. I procrastinate when I'm super excited about something and I have so many ideas, but the idea I have in my mind doesn't seem to translate to reality. That's what Morenike, a student, said. And then Colleen says, this is hands down the number 1 reason I procrastinate when on my computer. BuzzFeed is an abyss of procrastination potential. And then sometimes for me these days is TikTok, because I've curated my TikTok experience to just the people I want to follow and to specific subjects I want to listen to. And so because I curated it, these are really, so it's very easy for me to say, okay, let me just take a minute on TikTok. And then before I know it, I've spent 30 minutes on TikTok scrolling. So Colleen says that is why she keeps scrolling and then it really never ends. Then I asked the final authority when I was doing this research. I asked my wife to complete that. I procrastinate when, and then she said I procrastinate when I don't know where or how to start working on a task. This is very revealing. And what I want you to do is to take some time and come up with your own I procrastinate when list. Study yourself, as I'm going to emphasize later. A lot of things success in anything you want to do. And if you really want to pursue greatness and you really want to pursue global influence and significance, you've got to be very, very self-aware. It begins with self-awareness. And this is one of the tools to dig into the deepest parts of you, to become aware of what triggers procrastination in your experience. Because when you are and you understand that root, it becomes very, self-awareness actually helps you, because you feel it when it's coming. And then you can say, oh, here comes the demon of procrastination, and then you can do something about it. So I would like you to do this exercise. Take out a blank sheet of paper or go to your journal and then write, I procrastinate when, complete it. Several sentences, complete it. It's going to be very revealing. Because you see, when you don't know where the bullet is coming from, someone is firing, people are firing bullets at you. When you don't know where it's coming from, it's very difficult to dodge. But when you know, oh, look at the sniper. I've seen the sniper. Look at him right there. Then you know exactly how to dodge. That's what this exercise will do for you. I procrastinate when. So you know when the bullet is coming, and then you can come up with strategies to do that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Put in the comment section, makes sense. Okay, so in summary, in talking about the root causes of procrastination for you particularly, there's a lot of research done by different universities, Harvard, Stanford, all kinds of universities. So much research has been done in on procrastination. So much research, I beg your pardon. And I have read quite a number of books of these articles on procrastination, and I found in all of them that we tend to procrastinate in two categories of tasks. The first one is when we do things that we don't like to do, when we are faced with unpleasant tasks, we don't like to do it, we procrastinate. The other thing that triggers procrastination for most of us humanity is when we don't know how to do it. It's a difficult task. You have an offer, you have something to market to the public. You have some agricultural products you want to export to African stores in Europe or in America, and you don't know how to do it. You want to take your business online, and you don't have the competencies, you don't have the skill to create a website, to put it together, to think through it together. We procrastinate. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? So bear this in mind, because we are now going to begin to deconstruct, to break it down, and to begin to slash it. Because at the end of this session, you would have a clear picture and a clear plan of how to make yourself procrastination free from the very next morning. Okay, so we procrastinate because our brain is wired to put unpleasant experiences off. You've got to understand the root cause of procrastination in the way our brains are wired. The brain doesn't like unpleasant things. It doesn't like hard things. It wants to make things easy. You really have to understand this. So if it's a difficult experience, a very unpleasant experience, we tend to procrastinate. We tend to, I think there's a proverb, it's saying, I'm trying to remember, they say, like to put off or to prolong the evil day or something like that. Okay? Now, I have an example of that. The last time I had dental appointment was in 2004. And the dentist actually gave me follow up, come in 6 months, come whatever. He said, but for some reason, visiting the dentist, I don't know why, but for some reason, visiting the dentist, for most people, it's not a pleasant experience. So I kept on putting it off for over 20 years. And then it now happened that, one of these days, I was chewing, and I don't remember what it was, coconut, something hard. And then it broke off some part of my enamel. Is that enamel is called? And then exposed the nerves. It was extremely difficult. And then by this time, in 20 years, I've started having holes and cavities that weren't there in 2004. So you see, it took that very difficult hurt for me to force myself to go see the dentist. And then they extracted my beautiful tooth. I never dreamed that one day my tooth will be extracted. I mean, if you knew me just 2 years ago and you watched me smile, or you have my video of 2 years, 3 years ago where I smiled, you will notice that difference, that the one tooth has been pulled here. So, ladies and gentlemen, procrastination has very, very far-reaching consequences on our lives, on our business, on our relationships. And therefore, it's important that if you have such an enemy, that you learn to deal with it, because it's going to stop you from becoming all that you could ever become. All right, so let's go to the second part of the agenda today. Let's talk about the mind shifts. Since it's essentially a mental challenge, a mental struggle, it means that certain things have to shift in our mental models, in the way that we process the world, in the way that we process our lives, in the way that we assign meaning. Things have to change for our lifestyle to change. So now you're living in procrastination. It is attached to a particular mindset. For you to go from a procrastination-filled lifestyle to a procrastination-free lifestyle, that change must begin in the mind. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. What does this involve? You see, because if you do not treat procrastination, it can last a lifetime. My goodness, I meet people in their 40s, in their 50s. You would imagine that if a teenager were procrastinating, you say, okay, I understand that. People live on average to 70 years, so he still has like 53 years ahead of him. You see, but people procrastinate at 17, they procrastinate at 25, they procrastinate at 40, in their 50s, they are still procrastinating. There are people still procrastinating in 50s and in their 60s. Therefore, if you don't shift the way your mental models that are producing this kind of life, then it is likely to last a lifetime. And then the unfortunate thing about that is that none of us actually has our day, the day we are going to exit this planet. And so people procrastinate right into the grave. And that's why someone has said that if you go to the grave, to the cemetery, that is the wealthiest place on earth, because in the cemetery you have books buried that were never written. I remember a couple of years ago, there was this phenomenal lawyer in Nigeria. Some of you from Nigeria may have, especially the older ones, may have heard of Gani Fahewimi. Incredible human rights lawyer. He fought the military juntas of his time to a standstill, went to prison many times, came out. And so this guy had incredible experience and memoirs. But unfortunately, I think he was 70 or so when he was diagnosed with a certain kind of cancer. And he was flown abroad for treatment, and his aide came later. Eventually he died, unfortunately. So his aide came later and was talking about that experience. He said that as he stood by the dying bed of Gani Fahewimi, great man, great man. The country hasn't produced so many like him in his discipline, his area. In fact, since he died, we really haven't had another Gani. So you can imagine what this man carried with him to the grave. So his aide said that while he was by his deathbed, that Gani was crying and praying and asking God to just give him some little more time to write his memoirs, to create his memoirs. Can you imagine what that memoir, Gani Fahewimi's memoir, could have meant for the legal industry in Nigeria and then internationally? But it never got done. And we don't know why it never got done, but procrastination can be extremely painful. So if you go to the graveside, you will see inventions that were never made. People had ideas, but they kept on procrastinating. As I'm going to talk later, some say, okay, when I need money, when I need that. There are people who kept on procrastinating their marriage. They wanted to get married, men. And there are a couple of them that I know. They said when I get money, in their 20s, 30s, they say when I get money. 40s, they say when I get money. 50s, they say when I get money. And they're in 60s now, they are not married. So what do we do with one of the root causes of procrastination? Waiting for perfection. In fact, when I did that exercise for myself, when I coached myself through procrastination, I found that one of the biggest viruses creating my own procrastination was perfection. I always wanted it perfect. Now, if it was me before, this thing I'm doing right now, the 1,000 days of life coaching, you see, I conceived this thing barely 1 week ago. And then in less than a week, It's already live. But if it was me of 5, 10 years ago, oh no, this thing will never see the light of the day for another 8, 9 months, and sometimes may never see it because it's never perfect. You know, I told you I wrote that book, my first book, under 1 week. But I still didn't find it perfect. It still wasn't perfect. So much so that the very day it was going on print, I still made corrections. Yet that book came out, Financial Freedom for Every Youth, and became an instant sensation. Instant sensation. We gave the books to different radio stations and then television stations, because at that time, that was in 2008, and you remember we had a so-called global economic meltdown in 2008. And then one of the TV houses that we gave it to, they read the book. Somebody read the book there and then called me for an interview, because people were desperately searching for answers for their financial destinies, because businesses were failing, banks were failing, all kinds of things were happening in 2008 for those of you, who were old enough at that time. So the television house called me, Mr. Obo, can you come and talk to our audience about, we saw your book, can you come and talk to the audience about the global financial situation? Of course, I said yes. So they interviewed me the first time. 2 weeks after, they called me again. Please, would you mind coming to provide some more perspective on what the world was going through? So you see, it's not today I started this thing I'm doing, this financial fitness for people, especially Africans, Caribbeans, Pacific, third world emerging economies. And they called me a little after that, as I was finishing the second interview. They asked, would you mind coming every week on our live television to talk to people? That was how I got on television. I did not pay. But it was that book that, if I had procrastinated and if I had waited until it was perfect, I would never have had that opportunity to go on television, and I would never have had the opportunity to make the impact that healthy, wealthy, and wise live television program did for millions of people across Africa, because it was on cable for 5 good years, every week, no failing. So there's never a perfect time to make the right move. That's one mindset you must adopt. You don't have to do it perfect. So you install that in your brain. Don't wait until it is perfect. You do it and then it becomes perfect. Like this one I'm doing right now. It's not perfect, and I didn't want to wait until it's perfect. I still don't even know how to put things around during Facebook Live. Like right now, you're seeing my screen. I do not know how to show my face. And then if I end the screen, so there's a lot of things I'm learning as I'm going. So don't wait for the perfect timing to start that business. So you've got to adopt that mindset of, it does not have to be perfect before I launch it. There's another mindset, that confuses excellence with perfection. They are not the same. You can be excellent at something without being perfect at it. So you don't confuse them. They are two different concepts. So I can do like what I'm doing right now. I'm doing it with excellence. You can see the quality of material, the quality of content I'm bringing to you free, and the whole world is looking at it. Global excellence. It's good for the Americans in the audience, it's good for the Europeans, it's good for the Africans, it's good for the Asians, for everywhere. It is excellent. But it is not perfect. It's not perfect. So because you've got to always give yourself, give your business, give your relationship the opportunity to grow, to get better, better. So don't confuse excellence with perfection. Perfection does not exist as it were. So what you want to strive for is excellence, and then perfection will take care of itself. Okay. Another mindset, I don't have enough money. The commonest one I hear all the time is, Obo, I do not have capital to start my business. Who told you that that's even an excuse? In fact, during the Financial Fitness Challenge, the next cohort is coming up on the 27th to 31st of August. Type it in the comment and make a note of it. 27th to 31st of August. The cohort 3 will be coming up in November. We run it 4 times in the year, so you always check the dates to know the best time for you. But the immediate one coming is 27th to 31st of August. And on day 3, I believe it's day 3. I have to check the curriculum. We're going to deal with not just how to deal with your debt, but how do you start from zero capital? And in fact, I will share my own experience. What happened when I quit Shell and I lost all the family savings to a money scam in Nigeria, and I had to start from -0, and I was owing more than 40-something million to 4 different financial institutions. So don't come telling me that you can't start that business because you don't have money, you don't have the funds. There's always a strategy to start with what you have, where you are, to multiply it. And then I will also be teaching you the concept that my 84-year-old mentor taught me. He said, Obo, if you want to start a business and you have money, then you basically trade, you buy and sell. He said, but if you don't have money, if you don't have funds, he said you reverse it. You sell and buy. So I'm going to be telling you that a little bit more. But you see, a lot of people procrastinate because they are waiting for the resources. They are waiting endlessly. And it's like, until I have such and such amount of money, I'm not going to start this business. Or I'm not going to build a house. Or I'm not going to go to school, whatever. I have to have the school fee. It's like saying, all right, I have to wait until all the traffic lights in Lagos along my way turn green before I leave the house. Or it's like the man that says, I won't step into the swimming pool until I have learned how to swim. How are you going to learn how to swim without stepping into the swimming pool? So people say, I want to gather enough money before I get married. You've got to change that mindset that it doesn't happen. I have counseled one man who came from Akwa Ibom State to Lagos. He got engaged to a lady back home. And the lady was already ready to get married before he left. But he said he was coming to Lagos to make money so that they can get married. And then he called me after my television program. By this time, he was already in Lagos for 5 years. The girl got tired. Is it because her biological clock, just like most women, her biological clock was ticking? Well, the guy can afford to get married if he likes at 50-something. But she herself will find it more difficult. So the girl called him and broke off that relationship. I said, no, she can't wait anymore. And then he was asking me, what do I do? What do you do? So I said, even the Lagos you came to make money. I said, have you made the money? He said, no, that things are still very, very difficult. So I said, do you see that? You can actually keep this girl waiting another 5 years. So if I'm in her position, I would do exactly the same thing. So she made the right decision. So this mindset has to stop. Don't wait to gather enough. Start with what you have and grow. Start with the small, with the seed. And then put a plan in place, put some patience into it, and get going by all means. Don't wait until you've gathered enough. So all said, one of the most important secrets, which I've already alluded to earlier in the session today, is that you must know yourself. Okay? Know how your brain is wired. Understand how you roll. Okay, I think there was an interview I conducted a couple of years back. We were interviewing for a board or for some executive position. And then one of the things I remember asking the candidates was to write their own operating system. Each of us has operating system. They say we are 8 billion in the world today. No human operating system, none of us has the same operating system. That's why you have to know yourself, okay? How you are wired, what triggers your procrastination, what triggers laziness, what triggers overwhelm? What triggers depression? Know yourself. And then knowing yourself also implies knowing the things that edify you, that make you soar, that make you excel. So you do more of the things that push you up and do less of the things that bring you down. All right. So let's now delve into the tools and techniques to combat mental blocks, part 3. Now, there are so many tools, there are so many techniques, but for the time that we have today, I want to share one that I find as an executive coach, working with CEOs, working with business leaders, one that is very, very powerful, that is really, really accessible to you, that you can start. And then it's called behavioral activation. Okay? Type it in the comment section. Type it. I want you to own it. I want you to start feeling it. I want it to become visceral to you. Behavioral activation. This is very, very powerful tool that you can start applying tonight. And I'm going to give you an example how to use it. And then you can use it on your own. Once we finish with this broadcast, you can use it, for yourself. And then experience. Remember, we're talking about creating a procrastination-free life. This is one of the tools that will help you do that. So behavioral activation involves scheduling and engaging in positive activities. Remember that your brain is wired to avoid unpleasant experiences. So if you now rewire your brain through behavioral activation to focus on positive activities, they tend to counter procrastination, and then they boost your motivation. And this is why I'm currently coaching a group of 10 entrepreneurs. And then one of the things that we are doing in that group, one of the first exercises I gave them to do was to create, is a 90-day challenge, was to create a vision of what they would become as a result of having accomplished that goal. So that's also a form of behavioral activation. So now, scripture said that Jesus, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. It affected his behavior because he was looking forward and seeing the joy, the victory before him. So for these 10 entrepreneurs in my close group at the moment, I said, create the feelings, the emotions, the status, how it will change, how it will feel after you've accomplished this big goal for the next 90 days. And so whenever you start going down emotionally, that image will trigger the behavioral activation, the behavior that will help you. So there are 3 key principles in behavioral activation. So one is engaging in positive activities. The other one emphasizes creating a plan and taking action. It will amaze you, what I've seen being out there as a public person, how many people wake up every day without a plan. That is anathema. Without a plan. And then some people just live without a plan. You ask them, where are you heading to? What do you foresee? What do you expect to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years? No plan, just some vague whatever that somehow they just want to be comfortable or want to get married and things. No plan. Behavioral activation changes that. And then another key pillar of behavioral activation is rewarding yourself for the little results, for the daily results you see, having ways to reward yourself for that. So these 3 principles. And then, and the way to implement them, the principles, all right, involve also 3 steps that match those 3 pillars. The understanding that action beats feelings. Man, I'm telling you, if you have to rely on how you feel before you can take initiative, or before you can make a decision, or before you can make a move that is important, If you have to rely on feeling, you want to feel good first before you do it, man, life is going to be very, very miserable. I remember the late Jim Rohn once said, he was a very wise man. He said, if you are hard on life, life will be easy for you. Life will turn out easy for you. But he said, if you are easy on life, life will be hard for you. In my book, The Financial Freedom for Every Youth, I told a true story about a gentleman who was probably in his 70s at the time, or late 60s. He was really very old man. And he was serving as a gate warden, okay? What Nigerians call May something. I forgot, May guard or something like that. So he just opens the gate in the estate for young men who were just like his grandchildren. And he hated it. He didn't like it. He was. So I remember calling my children, my sons at the time, and I asked them, what do you think that this man did? Now he's like in his 70s. And I say, what do you think that this man did when he was 25, when he was 30, when he was 20 years old? And they say, yeah, he was playing. He was playing too much football. He was enjoying. He was, And that's something you have to understand about the perfect accounting of procrastination. It gets you. Now, he was doing what he was doing at 70, struggling at 70 to find food, because he failed to do what he should have done in his 20s and 30s. And some of you listening to this are probably in your 30s and your 40s, but you're still trapped in your teenage behaviors and values. So, action beats feelings. So for you to practice behavioral activation and to enjoy its benefits, you must uphold that principle that action will beat feelings. I remember a couple of years ago, many of you know that I literally jog every day, except in very rare occasions that somehow, I don't. And then there was this particular day, I just kitted up, ready to go out there to jog. As soon as I stepped out of the gate, the sky blackened, wind started blowing, and a storm was coming. I said, and I actually did a video that day. Some of you may have seen that video. I said, no way I was going out. I'm kitted to go, because if I yielded to feeling, oh, man, it's about to rain, I don't feel good, I'm going to feel cold, I'm going to feel wet, I would never have gone. I took action, went into the rain, and did what I had to do. The second principle is small steps. Somebody said you can't jump, what's this canyon in the US, Grand Canyon? You can't jump it in one leap. So small steps are okay. And someone also said, think globally, but act locally. Because many people, because that's the trick of procrastination. It keeps you waiting until, you keep on dreaming until it is big before you actually start. But the big fish starts like a fingerling. The chicken, the grown-up hen or cock, started as an egg. The big mighty trees you see in the forest started as a seed. So behavioral activation implies taking small steps to see big changes. Someone said that before I got married, a friend who had been married and a lot more experience than myself. He said to me something I never forgot, because this was like in 1994. We were still courting, and he said to me, I remember that day, it was so grave. He said, Obo, big doors hang on small hinges. And Uche Azonye, Uncle Uche Azonye, if you're hearing this as I'm saying it, I want to thank you, to tell you that 30 years, 30 something years since you told me that, I've not forgotten it. 30 something years later, I'm talking about it and I'm sharing it with the whole world. Big doors hang on small hinges. So be comfortable with taking small steps and seeing small results until you see the big change. Again, find your fun. And then finding fun, you know I'm not an entertainment person, because as far as I'm concerned, I know many of you fight me when I say that. You shouldn't watch television, when you are not already rich and financially free. What are you doing with television when you are still struggling to eat, to buy water, to train your children? And you're buying television and subscribing monthly, for all kinds of whatever. I never needed it. So when I say find your fun, I'm not talking about going to, all this kind of, what I'm talking about. But finding your fun is finding the fun in your work, in what you do. My greatest fun is in my work. Meeting people, talking to people, producing content, so I find fun in it. As I'm jogging in the morning, I find fun in facing the camera and talking to people. So find your fun. And then for you, it might not be the same thing for you, because a lot of people, even if they put a gun to your head, you won't face camera. So it's not your fun. You don't have to, but you've got to find your work. Find the things, the way you're wired, and the things that give you the most joy while producing results. Okay, now how do you implement it? I've made this very easy for you. Okay, so you can actually snap this. All right, let me leave this for a few seconds. If you're not using your phone or something, or however, you can just take a snapshot of this. And don't worry if you can't do it right now, because this video is of course going to be available immediately after we finish, and it will also be on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, there's just so much. I'm sure you're getting value. There are tons of value for free that I put out there in YouTube. Go find my name, Obo Awoke Obo, and then subscribe so you can get all this. Right. So how do you implement behavioral activation? So I made it so easy for my coaching clients, for the people I coach, to implement. So there is this template that I've developed, all right? So it involves activity scheduling, action steps, reflection, and positive reinforcement. And that reflection is so powerful because it's dangerous to live without reflection. Even if it's something simple as saying what works, what doesn't work. Even if it's something simple as the exercise I did when I turned 50. I took half a day. There's no birthday celebration. I actually haven't had any. But on that 50th birthday, I did a special celebration. I asked myself, what were the things that worked in the first 50 years of my life that I can upload to the next 50 years? I made a list. And I made another list. What were the things that didn't serve me in the first 50 years of my life that I must never export to the next 50 years? Because if it didn't work for 50 years, for the first 50 years, it's not going to work for the next 50 years. So that's why reflection, you can see reflection there. That's how reflection is powerful, and it should be part of our daily life. Then, of course, we talk about the positive reinforcement. Remember that one of the principles of behavioral activation is rewarding yourself, finding your fun, rewarding yourself. Okay, so the template goes like this. Plan a specific time to engage in a productive activity. And then you can underline productive activity. Because this whole thing, the behavioral activation model, is focused entirely on productive activity. Just after this, I'm going to talk about Pareto, because that principle is powerful. It talks about 80-20. There's also 90-10, and there's also 95-5. 90% of our results are produced by just 10% of our activities. So if you identify those 10%, that 1, 2, or 3 activities, it might be, if you're in my line, it might be producing content. Okay, so but I'm going to give you an example after that. So you say on dash, you put date and time. I will set aside dash to dash. Then the second step, action steps. In this step, you break down the activity into smaller, manageable steps. Because the reason that sometimes procrastination overwhelms us is because we see the whole thing to be done, the whole entire project, and it overwhelms us. But by the time you break it into very digestible steps, all of a sudden, you start melting procrastination. Then for the reflecting, you reflect on how completing the activity will make you feel. Remember, I talked about that just a while ago. Then identify a reward, which is the positive reinforcement for completing that activity. How are you enjoying this? Is this some value? Put in the comment. Put something in the comment. Is this valuable to you? Have you been exposed to this information before? I'm actually curious to know. Now, this is an example of how to use it. Okay, so let's say I'm a small business owner, and I want to create my behavioral activation with regards to increasing my revenue. So I can say on Monday, August the 5th at 9 a.m. So you see, I fill that blank. I will set aside the time, 30 minutes, to productive activity, to organize my sales pipeline. So you see, organizing my sales pipeline becomes, like is something that I could easily procrastinate. But by the time I schedule it ahead of time, I set aside 30 minutes, it's giving your subconscious instruction. It's giving your brain instruction. And then some of you may have experienced it. When you go to sleep and then you want to wake up, you don't want to wake up with an alarm clock, and you tell yourself, I will wake up at 5 a.m. to pray or to do that or to work on this memo or to plan. And then you say it to yourself before you go to sleep. 5 a.m. It's not magic. 5 a.m. you wake up. So this is what the activity scheduling part of behavioral activation does for you. Because when you schedule it, your brain automatically creates that space, that workspace, and blocks it, for you. And then the brain says, when anything wants to compete with that, the brain says, no, it's been taken. All right? It's been taken. This time on 5th August has been taken by an activity. That's when this man who owns me is going to organize his sales pipeline. Now, on the action steps part, the first step I will take is reviewing all current leads. Okay, so I have leads in WhatsApp, I have leads in email marketing system, I have leads in Telegram. So I review all of them, then followed by, so you can see how it's sequenced. This thing is a brain hack. And I'd like you to try it and then come back to the comment section and reach out to me and tell me the result. So I review all my current leads, followed by categorizing them based on potential. So I might say, okay, in that portion, I will say, all right, this is the top 10 percentile. This is the top 20 percentile or something that are likely. And then finally creating a follow-up plan for each category. So you see how you've programmed the brain. Then reflection. I will say to myself, after completing the activity, because I'm acting as if, which is another very powerful spiritual principle, act as if you've already done it, as if you're already that person. So he says, after completing the activity, I felt organized and focused. This shows that having a clear sales pipeline can reduce stress and increase efficiency. Meaning, if I had done it, if I can do it within the 30 minutes, it's going to save me another 3 months of lack of clarity. Then what do I do for that behavioral activation? Positive reinforcement, I will say, as a reward for completing this task, I will give myself fresh fish pepper soup right after by 9:30. Can you imagine how powerful this is? I like pepper soup. I like very well made pepper soup, with local seasoning. Can you see how exciting behavioral activation can be? So I'd like you to look at this example and then copy the blank, or you can request for it in the comment section, and then I can send you the PDF, and you can use that to do that. All right, let's go to the final and also exciting part of today: maintaining focus and developing productive habits. How cool is that? Okay, so I created for this session, and of course, if you're a coach, like myself, you have to be very, very innovative in creating tools to help clients. So I created this, and I call it Obos Procrastination Matrix. And basically, because of what I had set before, the background I had set before that says that our brains are wired to avoid unpleasant tasks and unpleasant experiences. So I did a matrix between difficulty of the task and the pleasantness of the outcome, or even of the task itself, doing it. So that yielded to me 4 quadrants. So in the first quadrant, okay, this is the lower left quadrant. That's the one I'm calling first quadrant, the lower left quadrant. You have not difficult and not pleasant. That quadrant is not difficult and is not pleasant. So, and I've called it the avoidance quadrant, because that's where you have things, if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, like answering emails. It's not difficult to answer your emails. And it's also sometimes not pleasant to just answer emails. You wake up in the morning, and then you see 37, some people even see 200 emails waiting of leads, people asking after your business, asking, okay, I read about your ad, tell me more about it. And it's not pleasant, when you have 150 emails and then people asking you, oh, okay, I saw your ad on Facebook, tell me more about it. Okay, so that's avoidance. Now, the quadrant, top left, that quadrant is not difficult, very pleasant. So this is easy and it is pleasant. And I've called that quadrant temptation. An example of, is like watching TV. How hard can you get to watch TV? It's not hard. It's enjoyable, but it is unproductive. So it will fall in the quadrant that I have called temptation. Right after this, I'm going to give you strategies for each of the boxes, because each of them has a box. So now let's go to the third quadrant, okay, which is the top right. This quadrant is very difficult and very pleasant. And I've called that the ideal. That's really where you want to. I can also call it flow. Okay? That's when that's ideally the kind of task, you want to, and the kind of state you want to find yourself. And that place is procrastination-free. It's not a procrastination zone. It's a procrastination-free zone. Meaning that if you want to, you see how the formula has panned out. Meaning that if you want to develop a procrastination-free lifestyle, you have to look at that ideal quadrant. All right? So an example of the tasks there are learning a new skill. It's challenging, but it's very rewarding. So can you imagine, for instance, if you learn Mandarin, I hope that's what they call the Chinese language. If you learn it, you have an immediate access to 1.3 or 1.4 billion strong market. I've seen a couple of videos of young Africans, in China who speak China better than Chinese people themselves, and then it's just incredible. It's hard, it's challenging, but when you do it, it's quite rewarding. It could also be learning a new instrument. It could also be something like learning digital marketing. My goodness, it's just so highly rewarding. Now, and then we come to the fourth quadrant. Here, it is very difficult and it's not pleasant. Remember, that's what we've been saying, that your brain is wired to avoid that quadrant. It's difficult and it is not pleasant. That is the procrastination zone. So you see, most people live in that procrastination zone. A lot of people also live in the temptation zone. And then many times we find ourselves in the avoidance zone. So an example of the procrastination zone is filing your taxes. Man, I struggled with filing taxes for many years, and even in Ghana, because I had a company in Ghana, it was very difficult until the Ghanaian government did something that made it very, very easy, facilitated it. So I was able to pay online. Before, you have to fill I think it's called, GRA, there's the tax form, then you go physically to the place to pay, and then they give you the tax clearance and things like that. But then, when they facilitated it, you could just I could sit in the US or in Nigeria, wherever I was, and then just file my taxes. Okay? So it's complex and stressful, filing your taxes by yourself. And so it's easy to procrastinate. What other examples do you have of a very difficult and not pleasant? Please type in the comment section, procrastination zone. Okay, so what do you do in all these zones? So each of these zones has a strategy. For zone number 1, that's avoidance, schedule it. So you can say, responding to my emails, I wouldn't actually want to do that first thing in the morning. I can say I respond to the emails 10 a.m. to 10:30. So you schedule it. For temptation, the temptation quadrant, set boundaries, set limits. Okay, so if you must watch television, maybe you give yourself boundaries, some limits, and say, okay, it's going to be between 7 and 8 p.m. If it doesn't interfere with your family life or whatever. Set boundaries around temptation, because the temptation just has the potential to just swallow up everything. It can swallow up all this other boundary, all this other whatever, if you don't put a limit to it. Okay? Then, for the ideal zone, prioritize. So when we do the 80-20 rule, you should be looking at things at that ideal zone, because that's the thing that will make you money. Because that's the thing that will eventually make you a global business. Because that's the thing that's going to take your side hustle from side hustle to a regional business, to a national business, to international. That ideal quadrant is powerful. Prioritize it. Give attention to it. I'm going to talk more a little bit on that in just a minute. And then for procrastination zone, simplify it. All right, those difficult and not pleasant tasks. Because sometimes you actually need to do unpleasant tasks that are also difficult in order to move forward. You can simplify it, break it down into tasks. Instead of a massive project, you break it down into small steps and then simplify the whole thing. The other thing you can do for procrastination is, instead of asking yourself how to do something, you ask who can do it. Who has already done this I can hire to do that? If I want to edit my videos, I will procrastinate it, because it's difficult and it's not pleasant. I turn out tons of videos, every month, every year. And so to sit down and start editing, and I look at the Adobe Premiere that my video consultant uses, is so complex and all that. So instead of saying, let me do it myself, I can hand it over, simplify my life by saying who is already doing it that I can pay to do that. And so something that could have taken me like 5 months to do, the skilled person, I just pay him and he can do it in 5 days. Is that making sense? Awesome. All right. Now, I call the Pareto principle, its application, I call it force multipliers. And then I was working with an executive, very top business executive recently, and he was facing the problem of procrastination. In fact, he struggled with procrastination. It's like that was a demon sent to torment him. And then we went through his schedule, and then we came about a very powerful insight. I saw that for many of us, we are doing too much of unimportant and easy things, tension relieving activities. We're just relieving tension, scrolling, doing over research on Google, and then you say, okay, let you just research or type something, and then from there, 5 hours later, you are still on whatever, and then the job never gets done. So we are doing too much of unimportant and easy activities. And then the other reason there's so much procrastination is that you're committing too little effort to the very goal-achieving activities that will move your life forward. And what's the solution? I recommend you read Tyranny of the Urgent. It's available for download, free. And then apply the Pareto principle. How does it work? Only 10% of your activities produce 90% of your results. So what I want you to do right after now is to make a list of just think about your typical day, how your typical day goes from waking up to the time you go to bed. Make a list of the activities that you typically do in your day. Now take each of them one after the other. This is part of the self-awareness, I had talked about, because many of us are just running on autopilot and then we don't really know. But you need to bring in intentionality to your day. You need to bring in awareness to what are your activities? What are you producing? At the end of the day, what have you produced? All right. So you look at that list of several things that you do in a day, and then find out the top 10%, all right? The top 3. Many times it's not more than 1 or 3. Maximum 3 activities that actually produce all your results. Can you imagine, for instance, if you are a business owner, can you imagine if every day you prioritize sales, you prioritize prospecting, talking to your customers, researching them, finding out what they want. Can you imagine if part of your day you devote it to creating offers, irresistible offers that will solve problems and then bring in income? But we leave that, we're attending this wedding here, we're attending this religious activity here, we are watching football matches, we are scrolling on the internet. That's your life, you're scrolling away. That thing is scary. Every time your thumb moves, that's a part of your life that you've scrolled away. So it better matter. Okay? That scrolling had better matter. So identify those top 3 activities that produce your results and then zoom in on them. This particular slide, what I've just shared with you, is what has helped me kill procrastination. And because I have scheduled, like now I said 1,000 days, I'm going to produce the same thing that we did every day. Do you know what it took to do this? And so because I'm committed to it, where is procrastination? Because I know that every 8 p.m., the whole world will be waiting for me. So where is procrastination? So distill those top 3 activities that produce your most result and then zoom in on them. All right, so this is actually where we are going to end it tonight. Has this been phenomenal for you? I really want to learn. I really want to know how this has landed with you. Has this been phenomenal? Please type in the comment and then let me know. And then also ask your questions. I'm going to go back to them after this live and I will answer your questions right where they are. Okay. So tomorrow we are going to meet the same time tomorrow. So, and I hope to see you then. So until then, keep showing up because you have no idea what's coming your way next. And I'll talk to you soon.